Hi, my name's Florine, and I'm a developer.
And I'm Adrian, and I'm a designer, and today we're going to talk about apps versus the web.
Not that old discussion again.
But first, we're going to
Go to Hipster Town.
Hipster Town, yeah, made popular by hipsters everywhere, I guess. Kombucha. I've not had this since I worked in LA, and I didn't care for it then. So, not sure if I'm gonna enjoy it. Okay, if I'm going to enjoy it now, we're not gonna use this, are we? All right. It's supposed to be lemon flavored. It seemed like the least offensive one.
Okay.
They also had like weird grape-ish flavors and stuff.
Okay, no. Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, I'll
Put
put
the bottle in.
well, it looks like pee, so that's good.
Cheers. Oh, it smells like old beer. It's not that bad, actually.
It's fermented green tea, black tea, I think. So, let's talk about apps versus the web, because that discussion is definitely not over yet.
No, no. And actually, the reason for this episode, I mean, we had it on our roster for quite some time. Every time we discussed it, it was like, nah, this is like an old
This is an old topic.
Like old topic. Why are we digging this up again? And
Again?
but then you found this report. It was the ComScore mobile app report.
Yep.
And
So
they
the Morgan Stanley thing, yeah.
yeah, and they said, apps are winning!
And we were like, oh hell no!
Yeah.
I can't really tell whether apps or websites are winning, because I don't think they really are the same thing. I think they each have their strengths, don't they?
Yeah, but is it relevant?
That's a good question. Okay, we can cut now.
Well, from a technology perspective, it is very much relevant, and from a builder's perspective, it's very much relevant. From a business perspective, but as a user,
Do you really care? I don't think so. The thing with apps is that, as far as I know, like the apps that I use the most, which is in my case Twitter, essentially that same experience that I have in the iOS Twitter app can be had on Twitter's website. I'm not seeing much of a difference there.
that's the thing, that most apps we use every day, there are some exceptions, of course, but most apps, they just replicate functions that can be had on the web as well, quite easily actually, with today's technology.
Yeah.
So, and that's even, to take this further, a lot of these apps are actually built on web technologies. They are app views, or are they cross-compiled to something like PhoneGap, or so.
Okay, that means nothing to me, but I'm assuming that means that they basically take all their stuff from the web.
They're actually just like, their app is a web browser that has just bundled web pages in the app.
Yeah, and so they pour some styling around it. And
Because that actually makes sense if you have a relatively simple app and you build a Android and a Windows 10 and the iPhone app, that you can use the same web assets. Okay, you may have to look at the different UX, but in essentially you can use these same basics to build cross-platform apps. That's the big win for the web, I think.
But that usually works for things like that have, you know, sort of a set format for their content, and like news, for instance, news apps. I can see where that would work, or Twitter. I can see where they could just, you know, they pull the web into an app basically. And then there's a lot of talk about how people spend much more time in apps, and that's a reason why people should make apps instead of websites for their companies. That's like something that I've heard online.
So they're saying that people spend more time in apps, or in specific apps, or...
It wasn't specified. It was just said that your target audience has a longer engagement time in an app. It didn't specify which app.
Let's say I'm a transport organization, or am I like the rail or railway or something, and you have a schedule. Does it really matter to me as a user if that's an app or a website? I think The main thing is that I have to find it and I have to know where to look for it. But technically, what it is,
if it's an app or a website, I don't really know if that really matters to the user. I do think that it's much easier to find a website than it is to find an app, unless you already have the app pre-installed. But
and you know what app to install. I mean, if you're on Twitter or you have to find a Twitter app or Facebook app, then you're going to look for the specific Twitter or Facebook app. But
yeah, and these are really popular apps. Like these are popular platforms. So finding that is not going to be that hard.
No, but most of you, and us included, are not Twitter or Facebook.
No, we're definitely not. But even as a user, if you're looking for more obscure apps, let's say you want...
no, not even obscure. Let's say I want to have a note-taking app.
Yeah.
And of course, if I know about Evernote or have something established, but let's say I'm going into the App Store and I'm going to search for a note-taking app. That's going to be a freaking nightmare.
There's going to be a few thousands, just like there's a few thousand to-do apps and a few thousand calendar apps, and
exactly, and that's so much better on the web because searching is really well done on the web, and I think we have Google to thank for that, but and that's something that sucks so badly in app stores. And for me personally, I only go to the App Store if I know exactly what app I'm going to install. I'm never looking in the App Store. And it used to be different.
It used to be
in the
curated,
beginning. Yeah, in the beginning it was you could easily go get the best apps, and that was quite well done. But now there are so many apps, and it changes so quickly.
And the ecosystem has sort of outgrown the format that they're trying to squeeze it in. Like the App Store is the Apple iStore is basically crippled by the enormous amount of crap apps that are in there, or craps as we call them.
Then that's just the App Store bit. There's also quite, of course they say, people spend a lot more time in apps, but it would be really interesting to see in what apps they are spending. If it's like, okay, we just hang around on Facebook or Twitter, that's not going to be in your app.
Yeah, and that's sort of also the question that I have when they say 18 times longer in an app than on a website. I mean, I can see people loitering around Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr to some extent for hours and hours on end. I mean,
because you're bored.
You can do that, yeah.
Or you're procrastinating.
Or your boss is not paying attention. I mean, you can do that. But most websites that I use, it's not physically possible to spend hours on. It's mostly about getting something done, for instance, or looking something up. Like I want a phone number to a restaurant, or
I need to know the schedule for something,
for the train. Which is going to be, that sort of skews the timeline a bit. There is something to be said that if you are, for instance, a train company, the less time people spend on your site to find what they're looking for, the better.
Well, yeah, okay, there is some variance there, because if just everybody goes like, oh no, fuck this, I'm just leaving now.
Okay.
But yeah, there to some point you have really got a point. And there's also the fact that the app abandonment is really high. I mean, in 2014 there was a study by Nielsen, and they said that 55% of the people they use less than 4 apps per day.
Yeah, and 2 of those are Twitter and Facebook. So,
and your email.
And email. And maybe your calendar. I don't see very high hopes of a new app establishing, unless it's like, an Uber app or the Airbnb app or something. Yeah. But even that, I mean, do you use it that often? I can't really tell. And similarly, a study by Localytics from June 2015, they said that 25% of all apps are only used once. That's a quarter of all apps only used once. So I don't really see making an app as a good business investment from like a perspective of our clients. Would you recommend them make an app?
In most cases, not really. There are, of course, there are some reasons to to have an app. In the past, there was the argument, yeah, okay, but you are found in the App Store but we just said, yeah, App Stores suck and you can't find anything on there.
No, and the only thing that floats to the top are the apps that are going to be naturally found anyway.
And that are popular, that have big platforms, etc., etc. So
because people already know Facebook, they're going to look for a Facebook app, basically.
That's the thing.
And that's actually also interesting because other apps launched by Facebook are less successful than their Facebook app.
Is that true?
Yeah,
also the
so. Messenger is getting there, but I mean they had quite a few failed apps or apps that didn't really do when they tried to take on Snapchat a few years ago. I think it was called Slingshot something.
Okay.
But again, that is because people don't really care about that platform.
Yeah.
They just want the Facebook app and look at their timelines and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Another thing that matters is that organic traffic to apps is really hard. And this is actually what we just said, because if you know about Facebook or if you know about something, you're going to install that app if it has some value to you. But as the app stores pretty much suck, your organic traffic to your app is going to be hard. And that's much easier on with websites. I mean, you can...
Yeah, the linking going from one website to another is very natural to users.
Yeah, and there is also the threshold. I mean, if I see, let's say offline, I see an ad for something, and I'm willing to go to a website. I'm less inclined to install an app. I mean, I just saw an ad and I think, okay, let's have a look at it. And I'm not going to install their app.
No, and how would you do that? Like, how would you find a company XYZ's app in their app store?
QR codes?
Yeah. No, because it's very hard to find things in the app store. That's.
And then you got, of course, all the fake apps.
They get fake apps, which is also a problem.
The threshold to install an app is quite high for me, and it must really have added value.
Yeah. And I think there's also a problem that I can pretty much assume that most companies that are in business now have websites. I mean, even if they're shit websites, they probably have some kind of web presence to some extent. Whereas an app, the chances that the bakery across the street has an app is 0. You might find it on Yelp, but it's not their app.
So. No, it's not their app. Again, that's a platform.
Exactly, and that's why they are sort of floating.
Yeah. So, and there is also the other problem is that linking apps together is extremely hard, especially on iOS. I mean, unless you're Apple.
It's a sandboxing issue, no?
Yeah. It works to some extent on Android with intent, but even that can be tricky. And the web is built to be linked and to be an interconnected web of different services or websites or applications, etc.
Yeah. Well, they do try to sort of encourage the organic switching between apps. I mean, we have multitasking on iOS, and we have the recently invented back buttons, so you can go back to an app where you came from.
Yeah, I find that extremely confusing. Sometimes.
Same to me, because you don't really have an overview of where you came from. I mean, if I'm in, for instance, Safari on iOS, I can just look through my tabs and see where I came from.
Exactly.
The linking behavior, so like the forwards and back buttons, they are much more ingrained in the web than they are on apps. And that brings me to another point. If you do payments, for instance, like with e-banking on a website, in the Netherlands, they bounce you to a separate platform where you can actually make the payment, which then asks you if you want to use an app for that, which bounces you then to the app. And every time it does something, it opens a new tab.
That's extremely,
which is super annoying.
Confusing, yeah.
And when you are done with your payment, so you've done your payment in your banking app, you are sort of sent back to your browser, which opens a new tab that gives you the confirmation of your order. So to make a transaction, you have like 4 or 5 different tabs open that all a different state of the transaction, which is just super confusing.
It is, but you're saying that will be a better use case for an app.
Online payment, I think that would be a better use case for an app, but that is, I think, has to do with the login.
Yeah, and that's actually some of the
credential
part. Yeah, and that's some of the things that that are currently not so I'm not saying can't, but are a lot harder to do in apps. Let's go over a couple of these.
Yeah.
offline is one of the bits that are quite hard to do in apps.
Or in websites.
Yeah, in websites, sorry, and it can be much better handled in an app. There are some developments that will make it easier. On Android, you can use service workers in Chrome, and they can do background tasks, and they can handle offline traffic or bad connection traffic, and decide to do based on that. An example for that is the I think the Instagram app has a optimistic UI, so when you're offline, you can still like photos, and once you're online, it's going to sync that to the server. So.
Okay, so you can load new stuff, but you see a photo you like, you can still interact.
and that's well, you can do some of this stuff in websites on the web as well, but it's just harder, and the APIs are not there because service workers, for instance, they're not in Safari, so you're going to be out of luck there. So you have to do an alternative method with app cache, and it's really hard to do.
Okay.
Another thing is installability. I mean, okay, there is a threshold for me to install an app, but let's say I live in Arnhem, the Netherlands, and they have one bus company there. But the thing is, they have an app with their timetables and schedules from different stations, and I can open that app and instantly go there, and that's useful for me. And if I'd had to go, okay, what was their URL? I have to go to their URL, and then, okay, I have to click on timetables, etc. That will not work. And in that case, I think I would install that app. I install that app to have easy and fast access to that information.
But that's because you as a user you're going to need that again. So you have repeat use, and it'll probably remember where you are or where you live, or the routes that you regularly take, that kind of stuff. That you can do that with a website. You can actually, it's a shortcut, obviously.
Yeah, these save to.
Yeah, exactly. So you can put it on your home screen.
On your home screen, yeah. But still, that's not really installing, and that's
no, it's not.
No. I should be able to have a button on a website. Okay, install this on my device, and there's actually a lot of discussion around in the web as well. I think Opera is really working on that. That what should the paradigm be of installing a website, and how do people feel about that? And it's mostly a feeling thing, because some of this is technically just you can already do, like you said, put it on a home screen. There are also some other technical issues there, but okay.
In the same sense, when we were talking about bus companies, for instance, before, like, the mobile internet across Europe, for instance, was affordable. I mean, it's still pretty expensive unless you have like really expensive plan. It was really important to get, for instance, public transport apps for a city you were going to visit. And to have offline timetables for that was hugely valuable. I mean, that's another reason why I would go look for an app instead of actually go to a website.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And there's, of course, logins. I mean, I don't have to log into the Twitter app every time I open it, because it's on my phone.
Or your banking app.
No, my banking app. Okay, I have to log into my banking app, and I kind of like that I have to log into my banking app.
Yeah, obviously, but it's not
still,
as complicated as the authentication.
I'd have to do on the web, exactly. And every time I go to Twitter website, I'd have to log in, and as I have a very long password, that's going to be a pain, because then I have to log in and my password managed, etc., etc. So. And of course there is the performance bit, but that's not really applicable to a lot of apps. But if you have games with 3D or a lot of graphics, etc., you probably want to use an app. And
I think that's actually sort of the exception, no?
Yeah.
I mean, games, I think anything that is very heavy, so that's going to require a lot of downloading, is probably best.
Downloading, but also rendering performance.
Good point, yeah.
You want to have native access to the native API. And there are some apps that needs access to specific sensors or thing in your phone that they are not all available on all platforms. So that might be a thing.
Well, there's actually already quite an impressive range of sensors.
You can
like
do,
sensors
you can use from the web,
which is pretty cool. But I think to wrap this up, Luke Wroblewski probably said this best when he said that apps have rich experiences, for instance, games or anything else that's like heavy on the performance side. and websites have reach, because it's much easier to access a website than an app. And I think even if they only stay for like 2 minutes or 10 seconds or whatever, it's probably you're probably going to easily or more easily visit a website rather than download an app for a specific thing that you're going to use once.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's about it. So we'd like to thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'd like to thank our sponsors, DigiPaint and Asphalt Photo. And we'll see you in the next one.